They told you the Great Pyramid was just a tomb, a monument to a forgotten king built by slaves and dust. But deep down, you already know that cannot be the whole truth. Because stone does not speak for the dead, it speaks for eternity. And these stones are speaking still. The Great Pyramid is not a grave, it is a riddle, a clock, a code. Every measurement, too precise to be chance. Every angle, a line not to Egypt, but to the heavens. Every chamber, echoing with mathematics, no civilization should have known. They say history began 5,000 years ago, but these stones whisper of a science that is older than memory, of a map that charts both the stars above and the hidden pulse of the earth below. It is a code written not in ink, but in granite. A message that survived floods, fire, and the collapse of empires. A message not carved for the dead, but left for the living, left for you. And once you see it, you will never see the Great Pyramid the same way again. They call it a tomb, a monument to a dead king. But stand before the Great Pyramid of Giza, and you'll feel it. This is no grave. This is a riddle that refuses to die. For over 4,500 years, this stone giant has stood against time itself. Emperors have risen, religions have fallen, languages have been lost, yet the pyramid remains. Its limestone shoulders have endured earthquakes, storms, invasions, and the shifting sands of millennia. It does not fade into myth, because it was never built for memory alone. It was built as a witness, a message, a code. Archaeologists say it was constructed around 2560 BCE for Pharaoh Khufu. But even the most seasoned scholars whisper doubts. Why? If it was just a tomb, is there no trace of royal treasures, no hieroglyphic boasts carved on its walls, no golden sarcophagus resting in the king's chamber? Why does the most massive and precise structure on earth hold only silence? Ancient Greek historians like Herodotus were bewildered. Arab scholars in the Middle Ages believed the pyramid was an archive, a vault of knowledge from a lost age. And today, engineers marvel at its precision. Millions of stone blocks, each fitted so perfectly that a blade of grass cannot slide between them. Its base is aligned almost perfectly with true north, a feat modern builders would struggle to replicate without laser technology. This is why the Great Pyramid refuses to sink into legend. It is more than stone, more than history. It is an echo of a truth humanity has yet to decode, because deep down, we sense it. This monument was never meant to vanish into the sands. It was meant to wait. From the moment one stands before the Great Pyramid, the silence of its geometry speaks louder than words. It is not merely a heap of stone, but a cipher. Each angle, each proportion carefully inscribed with intention. The pyramid does not shout its message. It whispers through ratios, through numbers hidden in plain sight. And it is this silence, this perfection of form, that compels the mind to listen. Consider this. The base of the Great Pyramid spans 755 feet, and when you divide the perimeter by its height, you arrive astonishingly close to 2 pi. This is not coincidence. This is deliberate. It means the builders encoded the relationship between a circle and a square, heaven and earth, eternity and time. Geometry was never just mathematics for the ancients. It was sacred scripture, a universal language of the gods. The slope of the pyramid itself reflects the golden ratio, that mysterious proportion found in seashells, in galaxies, in the very structure of the human body. This ratio appears where life seeks harmony, where the universe strives toward balance. By embedding it into stone, the pyramid became a hymn to cosmic order. It was not a tomb. It was a temple of mathematics, a sanctuary of proportion. Numbers do not erode, ratios do not crumble. Even when dynasties fall, when empires turn to dust, the code remains. A message written in stone, but meant for the stars. And when you stand there at Giza, you realize this was never built for the eye alone. It was built for the soul. It is geometry as revelation, mathematics as prayer, and architecture as scripture. The pyramid reminds us, truth is not only told in words, but carved into the very measure of the cosmos itself. Beneath the desert sun, the Great Pyramid rises like a question carved into stone. For centuries, scholars, priests, and seekers have asked, who were the true architects of this eternal monument? Was it the Egyptians under Pharaoh Khufu, marshalling thousands of laborers in a feat of human perseverance? Or was there another layer, one the sands have tried to cover, but the stones themselves still whisper? Mainstream Egyptology tells us the pyramid was built around 2560 BCE, an estimated 2.3 million blocks, some weighing more than 70 tons, placed with precision so uncanny it defies explanation. Granite transported from Aswan, over 500 miles away, somehow set into place with joints so fine a blade of grass cannot pass between. This alone sparks awe, but the deeper one looks, the more the official narrative begins to fracture. Legends preserved in Arab chronicles speak of a time before the Great Flood, when the pyramid was said to house the wisdom of a vanished age. Ancient texts attributed to Hermes Trismegistus, the thrice great, suggest that the pyramid was not merely a tomb, but a temple of initiation, aligned with the stars as a living book of cosmic law. Some traditions even claim the architects were not bound to any single time, but belonged to a lineage of knowledge keepers stretching across forgotten civilizations. Whether one accepts the vision of Khufu's engineers or imagines a deeper hand at work, the purpose seems to extend beyond kingship and burial. The pyramid endures not just as a monument to power, but as a key to eternity. Every block whispers of intention. Every angle hints at a message waiting to be decoded. And in that silence, one cannot help but wonder if the builders were human alone, or emissaries of something far greater. Beneath the Egyptian sun, the Great Pyramid rises like a frozen hymn, its angles catching the light as if to mirror the heavens themselves. For centuries, seekers have noticed something uncanny. This monument is not only a tomb, not only a stone mountain, it is an observatory, a cosmic mirror, a precise dialogue with the stars. The pyramid's sides align almost perfectly with the four cardinal directions, deviating by only a fraction of a degree, an accuracy unmatched even in many modern constructions. Was this chance? Or was it a deliberate attempt to ground the eternal heavens in stone? The shafts within the king's chamber point directly toward Orion's belt and Sirius, the very stars that the ancient Egyptians linked to Osiris and Isis, gods of rebirth and eternal return. To the Egyptians, the stars were not cold fires in a distant void. They were destinations, gateways for the soul. To build a structure that aligned with them was not simply mathematics. It was a map for eternity. Even more mysterious is the fact that the pyramid seems to encode the precession of the equinoxes, the slow, cosmic rhythm of Earth's wobble. Some scholars argue that its placement reflects the sky, not of 2500 BCE, but of 10,500 BCE, when Orion's belt aligned perfectly with the pyramids of Giza. If true, this would mean that the builders carried knowledge of cosmic cycles stretching back tens of thousands of years, knowledge thought impossible for a civilization just emerging from prehistory. When you stand before the pyramid at night and the desert sky blossoms with stars, you begin to understand. This is not merely architecture. It is a frozen alignment, a reminder that long before telescopes, long before satellites, there were those who knew the soul has a home among the stars. Beneath the immensity of the Great Pyramid, there lingers a silence that is anything but empty. It is the silence of waiting, for within its body are passages, chambers, and shafts that still puzzle even the sharpest minds. The king's chamber, lined with massive granite blocks, holds an air of purpose that no tomb theory can fully explain. The queen's chamber, lower in the structure, contains mysterious shafts that rise toward the stars, but astonishingly, these channels do not open to the exterior. They stop at hidden doors, sealed with copper fittings, as if guarding something that was never meant for careless eyes. In 1993, the robotic probe Uport was sent into one of these shafts and came upon a small stone door. Nearly a decade later, another probe pierced beyond it, only to find yet another barrier, a second sealed door, keeping its secret intact. What were these doors protecting? Some believe they concealed sacred relics. Others propose that they mark spiritual thresholds, symbolic gateways for the soul's journey after death. The shaft's alignments, one toward Orion and the other toward Sirius, add another layer to the mystery. To the ancients, these stars were not just lights in the sky, but portals to realms of gods and immortality. Perhaps these sealed doors were not meant to be opened with hands of stone and iron, but with the keys of consciousness itself. Archaeologists continue to scan the pyramid with ground-penetrating radar and thermal imaging. In 2017, researchers announced the discovery of a vast hidden void above the Grand Gallery, as large as an airplane, untouched for millennia. It sits silent, inaccessible, like a breath held in the chest of the pyramid. The ancients left us messages not only in what they built, but in what they left hidden. And sometimes, the greatest truths are not in what is revealed, but in what remains sealed, waiting for the right moment or the right eyes to be unveiled. From the very beginning, the ancients understood that numbers were not cold abstractions. They were alive. They vibrated with meaning. To them, mathematics was not simply a tool of calculation, but a sacred language, a mirror of the divine. Among these numbers, one ratio stood above all others, echoing in nature, in the body, in the cosmos itself. The golden ratio. Known to the Greeks as phi, it is a proportion that appears in seashell spirals, sunflower heads, the branching of trees, and even the measure of galaxies. It is the secret that binds the microcosm and the macrocosm into harmony. The pyramid, standing immovable on the Giza plateau, embodies this ratio in its very bones. Its height, compared to the length of its base, creates a near-perfect expression of the golden ratio. The slope of its sides, when measured with precision, reflects the same mathematics that governs petals, waves, and starlight. This is not coincidence. It is intention, a blueprint of spirit embedded in stone, whispering to those who know how to look that creation is ordered, not random. Plato once said that God geometrizes continually, and within the pyramid, this truth is carved into eternal form. The architects encoded this ratio not only as an aesthetic choice, but as a key, a reminder that spirit manifests through structure, and that beauty itself is a reflection of divine intelligence. Each angle, each proportion, was a prayer written in geometry. When you stand before the pyramid and look upward at its sharp rising lines, you are not just seeing an ancient tomb. You are seeing the mathematical fingerprint of the cosmos, a message from those who came before, declaring that the divine is not hidden in temples alone. It is written into the fabric of existence and into the very measure of stone. Beneath the vast silence of the desert, the Great Pyramid speaks a language without words. It is not inked on parchment, nor etched in fragile clay, but inscribed in stone that endures millennia. Each block, each angle, each shaft carries a message that transcends language and culture. The pyramid is more than a monument. It is a book written not for the eyes, but for the soul. A message encoded in geometry and light, meant to be read by those willing to listen in stillness. Ancient builders may have understood that words fade, languages die, but stone, aligned with the eternal rhythm of the cosmos, could whisper to generations unborn. The Great Pyramid stands as a silent teacher. To walk its inner chambers is to walk through sentences of stone. To gaze upon its perfect symmetry is to read a passage written in mathematics and proportion. Its voice is not in sound, but in resonance. The same resonance physicists today measure in its chambers, where sound amplifies into harmonics that vibrate the very chest of the listener. Mystics across cultures have suggested the ancients left their wisdom in forms, not phrases. The spiral, the circle, the cube, the pyramid, all carry within them truths too vast to be compressed into speech. The Great Pyramid embodies this principle. It holds within its dimensions the proportions of the earth, the movements of the heavens, the constants of physics, and the silent reminder that humanity has always been more than flesh and survival. To see the pyramid as stone alone is to miss its essence. To see it as a scripture written in geometry and aligned with stars is to begin to hear the voices of the ancients echoing through eternity, still calling us to remember. Beneath the sheer weight of stone lies a weight far heavier. For the Great Pyramid, with its 2.5 million blocks, is not merely a feat of engineering. It is a bearer of meaning. Each block, quarried, transported, and set into place with precision, was more than matter. It was a vessel of intention. The ancients did not see stone as lifeless. They saw it as living spirit, capable of holding vibration, of carrying memory, of storing prayer. When one beholds the colossal structure, it is easy to marvel at the labor, the mathematics, the logistics. But the deeper mystery is that these blocks were not simply stacked for stability. They were encoded as symbols, each layer lifting humanity's gaze toward the heavens. Symbolism in ancient Egypt was not art for art's sake. It was a sacred language. Hieroglyphs were seen as words of the gods, and stone was seen as the eternal tablet upon which divine truths were inscribed. The pyramid, then, is itself a scripture in stone, a book too vast to read in a glance, yet designed to endure across the ages. Its mass and alignment spoke silently to the stars, to the cycles of time, to the eternal return of spirit. Its very shape pointed beyond earth, a geometric hymn rising toward the heavens. Some scholars suggest the sheer enormity was a display of political power, a pharaoh's monument to himself. But that view neglects the heart of Egyptian cosmology, where life and death were not separate, and symbols were not decoration but portals. Each block carried the weight of collective devotion, intention, and meaning. The pyramid is heavy, not just with stone, but with prayer, with myth, with memory. To walk its base is to stand at the edge of an immortal story, one built not only of limestone, but of spirit itself. Some say the Great Pyramid is incomplete. Its apex, the capstone, is missing. Was it ever there? Or was its absence intentional, a riddle left in stone? The capstone, or Ben, symbolized the first mound that rose from the primeval waters of creation in Egyptian myth. It was not just the tip of the pyramid, but the crown of a cosmic order. Without it, the pyramid seems unfinished, as if the ultimate secret was withheld. Ancient historians like Herodotus and Diodorus Siculus wrote of pyramids capped in gold, their tops gleaming in the desert sun like the eye of Ra itself. Yet no trace of such a capstone has been found, leaving only silence and speculation. Some researchers argue that the capstone was never physical. Instead, it may have been symbolic, representing the invisible connection between earth and sky. A stone structure could never embody that link fully. Perhaps its absence was the message, that the final step of ascent cannot be built by human hands, but only awakened within. In Masonic lore, the missing capstone is the stone the builders rejected, a metaphor for spiritual completion awaiting those who see beyond the material. Others suggest more earthly explanations. Some propose it was stolen in antiquity, its gold and granite stripped away by conquerors. Others claim earthquakes or erosion brought it down. Yet the mystery persists, because if a massive capstone once existed, surely its fragments would remain. So we are left with a paradox, a structure so precise yet crowned by absence, a monument that points upward but stops short of touching the heavens. Was the capstone lost, hidden, or was its absence the ultimate teaching, that perfection lies not in the stone, but in the unseen realm it gestures toward, urging every soul to finish the pyramid within? The Great Pyramid has often been described as more than a tomb, more than a monument. Some researchers suggest it was a vast instrument designed to resonate with the frequencies of the earth and cosmos. When you stand inside the king's chamber, the granite walls hum when struck, producing a deep and haunting tone. Acoustic engineers like Tom Danley, who studied its resonance in the 1990s, discovered that the chamber vibrates strongly at specific frequencies, almost as if it were tuned like a giant musical instrument. This has led many to wonder if the pyramid was built to harness sound and vibration as a bridge between matter and spirit. Ancient cultures placed immense importance on frequency. In Egypt, the word for sound, hekau, was the same word used for magical incantation, suggesting they saw vibration as a force that could shape reality itself. Nikola Tesla once said, "If you want to find the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration." That sentiment echoes in the pyramid's design. The placement of its chambers, the use of granite infused with quartz crystal, and the alignment with Earth's magnetic field all hint at a structure meant to capture, amplify, and transmit subtle energies. Some theorists propose that the Great Pyramid functioned like a cosmic tuning fork, stabilizing Earth's resonance and connecting human consciousness with the divine. The Schumann resonance, the Earth's natural heartbeat at 7.83 Hz, matches closely with brainwave frequencies experienced during meditation and trance. Was the pyramid designed to amplify this, to help initiate altered states of awareness? In this view, the pyramid is not silent stone, but a living frequency device, an ancient tool that sang with the voice of creation itself, guiding the soul back to its cosmic source. Beneath the desert's endless sands, hidden beneath the weight of stone, there is water. Ancient explorers, mystics, and even modern engineers have whispered that the Great Pyramid is not built on dry land alone, but upon a system of underground rivers and aquifers. Some of the earliest references to this come from Arab historians like al-Masudi in the 10th century, who spoke of chambers below the pyramids filled with water. Modern surveys using ground-penetrating radar and seismography have revealed anomalies beneath the Giza Plateau, suggesting cavities and possible channels of flowing water. Now pause here. Imagine water moving beneath stone. Not still, but alive, vibrating. In sacred traditions, water is not just a physical element. It is memory, frequency, a carrier of sound. The ancient Egyptians themselves revered the Nile not only as the source of life, but as a mirror of the Milky Way above. If their temples and pyramids were aligned to stars, could the hidden waters below have been just as important, acting as a resonance chamber, amplifying vibration into the very bones of the earth? Nikola Tesla once remarked that if you wish to understand the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. Water beneath the pyramid may have been part of that secret. Flowing water generates negative ions, which affect consciousness and mood. Moving water also produces a natural hum, a resonance that could have interacted with the pyramid's geometry. Some scientists even suggest that piezoelectric effects from the limestone, combined with the presence of water, could create an energy field. Pause again. Stone above, water below, earth and sky united. To the initiate, this was not just architecture, it was a symphony. The pyramid may have been less a tomb than a tuning instrument, where the sound of creation itself was captured, magnified, and reflected back into the heavens. At dawn and dusk, the Great Pyramid is not merely a monument of stone, but a canvas upon which the sun paints messages for eternity. The alignment of its sides with the cardinal directions and the precision with which it greets the equinoxes speaks to an intention that goes far beyond architecture. When the light touches the pyramid, it is as if the universe itself is writing across its surface, encoding truths that can only be read in the dance of shadow and sun. On the equinox, the sun rises and sets in perfect balance with the pyramid's orientation. Its shadow edges form lines of startling precision, aligning with temples and causeways, suggesting a cosmic synchronization between earth and sky. Ancient priests may have stood in awe as this celestial choreography unfolded, knowing they were witnessing a union between heaven and stone. In those moments, the pyramid was not simply a tomb or temple. It became a clock of the cosmos, a reminder of cycles that govern life, death, and rebirth. Light itself was sacred to the ancients. They understood that illumination was not just physical, but spiritual, a bridge between the material and the divine. The careful placement of chambers and shafts within the pyramid allowed beams of light to penetrate only at certain times, turning stone into scripture and architecture into revelation. The pyramid thus whispered in a language of radiance, revealing hidden truths to those prepared to see. To modern eyes, these shadows and alignments may appear as coincidence, yet when we consider the mathematical precision and the sheer effort required to achieve it, coincidence begins to fade into intention. The Great Pyramid, through light and shadow, became a timeless message, one that reminds us that illumination comes not only from the sun above, but also from the awakening of the light within. Deep within the Great Pyramid lies the King's Chamber, a granite sanctuary that has stirred both scientific curiosity and mystical awe for centuries. Constructed of massive red granite blocks brought from Aswan, each weighing up to 70 tons, the chamber is not only impressive in its architecture, but mysterious in its purpose. researchers like Tom Danley, an acoustical engineer, have demonstrated that the chamber possesses unusual resonant frequencies, particularly amplifying sound waves at 117 Hz, 440 Hz, and other harmonic intervals. These frequencies align with the natural resonance of the human body and even the Schumann resonance of the Earth, suggesting that this space was intentionally designed to be more than a tomb. Imagine standing in the center of the chamber, where a chant or hum magnifies, bouncing off the polished granite walls until it feels as if the vibration is inside your own bones. Ancient initiates may have experienced this resonance as a form of altered consciousness, a bridge to the divine. In many traditions, sound is creation itself, the primordial Om of Hindu cosmology, or the Logos of early Christianity. Could the architects of the pyramid have encoded this truth into stone, creating a place where vibration acted as a key to unlock hidden states of awareness? Some modern theories suggest the king's chamber functioned like a technological device, a resonator designed to collect and amplify energy. Others hold that it was a sacred initiation chamber, where priests and kings underwent symbolic death and rebirth. Both perspectives intertwine when we remember that ancient cultures did not separate science from spirit. For them, sound was sacred, and resonance was a pathway into higher realms. Standing in the king's chamber, one is reminded, silence here is never truly silent. The stone itself continues to sing. Beneath the stone walls of Egypt's pyramids lies a silence that speaks louder than words. The ancients did not merely build monuments of stone, they carved meaning into their very structure. Hieroglyphs were the written form. But here, within the pyramid's core, the silence itself becomes a language. The absence of painted inscriptions in the Great Pyramid has long puzzled archaeologists. Unlike tombs in the Valley of the Kings, adorned with elaborate texts, the central chambers of the Great Pyramid are bare, as though they were intended not for the eye, but for the soul. Some scholars suggest this silence was intentional, a blank page meant for resonance, for vibration, for the living word of sound. Imagine stepping into the king's chamber, its granite blocks humming at specific frequencies when struck or sung into. In this space, the body itself becomes a hieroglyph, a symbol written in vibration rather than ink. Esoteric traditions have long whispered that hieroglyphs were not just pictures. They were energetic codes, containers of force. To carve or paint them was one method. To embody them through resonance was another. The chamber's emptiness was not a void, but a stage, a theater of silence where the initiate's breath, chant, or heart could inscribe the walls with an invisible script. Light filtering through shafts at precise angles, shadows falling across stone, and sound reverberating through the chamber created a multidimensional form of writing. It was a scripture beyond sight, a living hieroglyph written in frequency and light. When you stand in that silence, you can almost feel it, the unspoken words vibrating through your bones, as if the stones themselves hold a language that bypasses the mind and speaks directly to the soul. In every age, the mysteries of stone and symbol have not been left unguarded. Power, once revealed, reshapes the world, and so the ancients entrusted it to those sworn to silence. The priests of Egypt, clothed in white linen, moved through temples as living archives, holding in memory what no scroll was permitted to record. They were the mediators between man and cosmos, guardians of rituals that mirrored the rhythms of the heavens. To them, knowledge was not possession, it was stewardship. Their vows were not to hoard, but to protect, until the right soul, in the right age, would ask the right question. Later, as centuries turned and empires rose and fell, the torch of this hidden code passed into new hands. The masons of stone, whose chisels carved cathedrals that still breathe geometry and light, inherited fragments of the old sciences. Some say their guilds were born from nothing more than labor. Yet their cathedrals were built with cosmic precision, embedding truths of proportion, music, and time into sacred architecture. Just as the pyramid stones aligned with stars, so too did Gothic spires point not only upward but inward, calling the initiate to remember. Through both priest and mason, the line of guardians continued, those who carried fragments of an unbroken code. They understood that knowledge without initiation can destroy, that truth, unveiled too soon, can burn like untempered fire. So the keepers wrapped wisdom in symbol, in allegory, in rites of passage. To the unready, it appeared as superstition. To the prepared, it opened as revelation. And so, the code of the ages survived, not in books alone, but in bloodlines of secrecy, in brotherhoods and orders, in whispered oaths taken beneath stone vaults and starry skies. The truth was never lost. It was waiting, kept alive by those sworn to guard it. The ancients never built without purpose. Every stone was placed with an awareness of time far greater than the span of a single life. The Great Pyramid, in its precision, was not only an eternal tomb, but a celestial mechanism. Its angles, shafts, and alignments were tuned to the heavens, echoing what many traditions call the Great Year, a cosmic cycle spanning roughly 25,920 years, marked by the slow precession of the equinoxes. To modern astronomy, this movement is the subtle wobble of Earth's axis, but to the ancient priesthood, it was the pulse of the universe itself, the turning of a divine clock that revealed the rise and fall of ages. When you walk into its chambers, you are stepping into a diagram of time. The descending passage aligns with the pole star of ancient epochs, while the so-called air shafts are pointed to Orion and Sirius, markers of rebirth and divine cycles. Each alignment was not accidental, but intentional, inscribed into architecture so that even when ink fades and languages die, the stone still speaks the rhythms of the cosmos. The Egyptians, like the Vedic sages of India and the astronomer priests of Mesopotamia, recognized that humanity lives within these vast cycles. They called them ages, periods where consciousness shifts, civilizations rise, and empires fall. The pyramid became a silent keeper of that truth. Some scholars suggest that even the dimensions of its passages encode astronomical events, perhaps even predicting transitions between ages. Pause for a moment. Imagine a clock so immense that its hand moves so slowly you barely see it turn, yet entire civilizations are born and vanish beneath its sweep. This is the clock the ancients inscribed in stone, reminding us that we are not outside of time's rhythm, but woven into its cosmic breath. Deep within the polished stones of Giza lies a language that does not rely on ink, yet speaks more powerfully than carved glyphs. It is the language of proportion, of alignment, of sacred number. The Great Pyramid, for instance, is a testament to a mathematical mastery that seems to transcend the knowledge of its age. When scholars measure its base against its height, they discover the ratio of pi encoded in stone, the curve of a circle embedded within a triangle, a symbol of eternity whispered in limestone. But it doesn't stop there. Within its architecture, phi, the golden ratio, appears again and again, a number that governs the spirals of seashells, the unfolding of petals, and the proportions of the human body. It is as though the builders were not merely erecting a tomb, but manifesting the very mathematics of creation itself. These numbers were not chosen at random. They were chosen because they reflect the harmony between heaven and earth, a cosmic key carved into geometry. Even more astonishing, the pyramid's scale mirrors the planet itself. The perimeter of its base compared to its height reflects the spherical ratio of the Earth. Its placement on the globe corresponds with the very center of the landmass of our planet, as if the pyramid were not just built on Earth, but for Earth, a bridge between the terrestrial and the divine. Pause here. So when you stand before the stones, you are not only seeing a monument of a civilization long gone, you are seeing the universe encoded in stone, a cosmic message that says, we are part of something greater, a reminder that mathematics is not cold or lifeless, but a sacred hymn that sings of the harmony of all things. And in that song lies the whisper of eternity. Beneath the sands of Egypt rises a monument that has defied time itself. The Great Pyramid of Giza, towering against the horizon, has long been more than stone stacked upon stone. It is a coded message carved into Earth's very skin. For centuries, researchers have asked why it was built with such precision. The answer seems to lie in the heavens. The shafts within the pyramid, aligned not randomly but intentionally, point directly to stars like Alnitak in Orion's belt and to Sirius, the brilliant star associated with Isis in Egyptian mythology. These alignments suggest that the pyramid was constructed as a mirror of the cosmos, a terrestrial reflection of the divine order above. Orion held a sacred place in the Egyptian mind. The constellation was linked with Osiris, god of rebirth and the afterlife. To them, the stars were not distant fires, but portals, gateways the soul would travel after death. When the pharaoh was entombed in the pyramid, he was not simply buried. He was launched on a celestial journey, ascending the shafts to unite with Osiris in Orion's embrace. This cosmic map etched in limestone becomes not just architecture, but theology set in stone. Modern astronomy confirms that around 10,500 BCE, the alignment between Orion's belt and the pyramids of Giza was almost perfect, suggesting an intentional design rooted in a vision of the stars as markers of cosmic cycles. Was this coincidence, or a deliberate attempt to anchor heaven and earth in harmony? Even skeptics admit the precision is uncanny. The pyramid whispers that humanity once measured time not by clocks, but by constellations. That to understand our destiny, we had to look upward. For the ancients, the Great Pyramid was not just a tomb. It was a mirror of eternity, reflecting the heavens back upon the earth. They say symbols are the language of eternity. Unlike words, which erode with time, symbols endure, bridging generations, cultures, and faiths. Few symbols have captured the imagination of humanity more profoundly than the pyramid. Rising from the desert floor with unshakable precision, it points unerringly toward the heavens. Its very design whispers a truth, that life is not meant to remain bound to the dust, but to rise, to ascend, to remember its divine origin. When you stand before the Great Pyramid, you feel it, an invitation not just to marvel at stone, but to awaken to spirit. The pyramid's apex represents a convergence, a unification of dualities. Wide at its base, it embraces the material world, the earth, the body, the multiplicity of form. As the layers climb upward, they narrow, becoming fewer, until all lines meet in a single point. That point is transcendence, the return to unity. It is no accident that nearly every culture that studied the mysteries of geometry linked the pyramid to the soul's journey. For the Egyptians, It was a literal stairway to the gods. For Hermetic philosophers, it was a reminder that all opposites resolve into the one. The very angles of the pyramid encode sacred measures, the golden ratio, the mathematics of the cosmos. Its four sides face the cardinal directions, aligning earth with sky, matter with spirit, and above it all, the capstone, or missing capstone, as legend suggests, symbolized completion, illumination, the perfected state of being. So when the pyramid points upward, it does not merely gesture toward the stars. It reveals the ultimate direction of the soul. To ascend is not to escape the earth, but to fulfill it. To rise is not to abandon matter, but to let it be transfigured by spirit. The pyramid reminds us, the path always narrows, the climb is always steep, but the summit, union with the divine, is eternal. Beneath the silence of stone, hidden in chambers and corridors, the ancients designed more than monuments. They created stages of initiation. To step into the Great Pyramid or into any temple of mystery was never just an act of entering architecture. It was to enter a story, a journey from ignorance into awakening. The initiate was first led into darkness, where the senses faltered and the mind wrestled with fear. In those spaces, silence was absolute. Time itself seemed to dissolve. Here, the initiate confronted the shadow, ego, attachment, mortality. The outer world was stripped away until only the raw soul remained. The path through darkness was not punishment. It was preparation. Every tradition, from Egypt to Eleusis, from the Mithric caves of Rome to the Himalayan temples, speaks of descent before ascent. Joseph Campbell called it the hero's journey, the necessary plunge into the underworld before rebirth. The mystics of Egypt encoded it in stone. The narrow passageways were not merely functional, they were symbolic. The soul, confined, pressed into humility before emerging into the vast chambers of light. At the heart of these initiations lay a single truth. Death was not the end, but a doorway. The initiates learned to die before dying, so that when the final breath came, fear would no longer bind them. Scholars like Mircea Eliade describe these rituals as rehearsals of immortality, where the neophyte passed symbolically through death, only to awaken in a higher consciousness. The journey ended in illumination, from darkness into the king's chamber, where alignment with Orion and the pole star whispered of cosmic rebirth. Light entered, breath returned, and the initiate rose as more than a seeker. They rose as one who had touched eternity, because every true initiation is a reminder that what is buried in shadow always longs to rise in light. They were not built merely as tombs. The Great Pyramids, with their impossible precision and alignment, stand as monuments that whisper of something far beyond burial. To the ancients, the pyramid was not simply stone stacked toward the sky. It was a ladder for the soul, a bridge that connected the visible to the invisible, the earthly to the divine. The sloping sides reaching upward mirrored the rays of the sun itself, converging into a single point, as if to remind us that all paths eventually ascend to one source. Modern researchers, from Paul Laviolette to Robert Bauval, have argued that the geometry of the pyramid encodes cosmic knowledge. Its alignment with Orion's belt and the star Sirius is not accidental. These stars were seen as gateways, celestial thresholds through which the soul could journey after death. In texts like the pyramid texts of ancient Egypt, the pharaoh declares, "I ascend to the sky, among the imperishable stars." The pyramid was more than architecture. It was a portal, carefully tuned to the frequencies of the heavens. Even quantum physics echoes this idea. The shape itself seems to generate unique energetic properties, focusing and amplifying subtle vibrations. Experiments have suggested that pyramid geometry can preserve organic matter and influence electromagnetic fields. Whether through sacred design or natural law, the pyramid appears to stand at a crossroad where energy and consciousness meet. Imagine standing in the king's chamber, the granite walls vibrating with inaudible resonance, the shafts angled toward Orion and Sirius. For the initiate lying within, the chamber was not a coffin, but a cocoon, a place where the soul might slip beyond the body, beyond time, into other dimensions. The pyramid was the bridge, and the heavens waited at its end. The ancients never saw stone as lifeless matter. To them, it was a vessel of vibration, capable of holding memory, resonance, and the whisper of eternity. The Great Pyramid was not merely a tomb, nor a monument, but a library of immortality inscribed in form, rather than in words. Every angle, proportion, and alignment was chosen to echo the eternal rhythms of the cosmos, embedding in its stones a code that speaks to the soul more than the intellect. Scholars such as Schwaller de Lubitsch suggested that its geometry encodes principles of sacred mathematics, proportion, and the golden ratio, all symbols of the undying nature of consciousness itself. When you stand before it, the sheer symmetry evokes permanence. This was not an accident. The pyramid structure mirrors the cycles of death and rebirth, the ascent and return, the eternal journey of the spirit. To pass through its hidden corridors was to undergo a symbolic death, to shed the illusion of mortality, and to emerge into the light of recognition that life never ends. Ancient initiates, it is said, would lie within its chambers not to sleep, but to awaken, experiencing the dissolution of ego and the remembrance of their true, undying essence. Even modern physics echoes this truth. Energy cannot be destroyed, only transformed. The pyramid, in its silent testimony, declares the same, that the soul, like light itself, bends but does not break, shifts but is never extinguished. Its stones do not merely weigh upon the desert floor, they pulse with an eternal message. You were never meant to fear death. You were meant to remember that immortality was always encrypted within you, waiting for the moment when you would have the courage to decode it. Deep within the limestone passageways of the Great Pyramid and its sister structures lie chambers that do not simply contain silence. They resonate, they breathe with sound. Ancient initiates knew that stone was not inert, but a living amplifier of vibration. The king's chamber, with its granite walls, has been studied by acoustic engineers and researchers who discovered that it resonates at specific frequencies, creating standing waves that seem to amplify the human voice and even heartbeat. Modern experiments with cymatics, the science of visualizing sound frequencies in matter, show that vibration arranges particles into sacred geometric patterns. The ancients may have understood this long before modern science caught up. Imagine an initiate lying within a sarcophagus-like box in that chamber. A priest chants a sacred tone. The walls hum in harmony, and suddenly the body becomes an instrument tuned by the resonance of stone. It is not just sound, but a gateway, because vibration, when precise, alters consciousness. The frequency aligns with brainwave states that mirror deep meditation, or even altered states of awareness. The pyramid becomes a resonant body, and the initiate becomes the string vibrating upon the cosmic lyre. Whispers of this knowledge remain in texts describing the Egyptians' mastery of sound. Legends tell of stones being moved by chanting and resonant instruments, hinting that cymatics was not only spiritual, but technological. What science now rediscovers in laboratories, sound-shaping matter, was woven into the very architecture of these sacred chambers. To lie within such resonance was to be transported, not by distance, but by dimension. For when sound opens the gates, the soul remembers its own frequency, and in that vibration, the hidden geometry of the cosmos awakens within. Beneath the weight of the desert sun, the Great Pyramid stands not just as an Egyptian monument, but as an echo of something older, something reaching back to a civilization that many traditions say came before Egypt itself. Atlantis. Plato, in his dialogues Timaeus and Critias, described Atlantis as a highly advanced culture that vanished beneath the sea around 9,000 years before his time. For centuries, scholars dismissed this as myth, yet esoteric traditions, from Hermetic texts to Edgar Cayce's readings, whisper that the pyramids carry Atlantean memory within their stones. When you trace the geometry of the pyramid, its precise alignments, its impossible engineering, and its symbolic numerology, you begin to see a blueprint that may not have originated solely along the banks of the Nile. Cayce claimed the Great Pyramid was built as a repository of Atlantean wisdom, a library in stone, designed to preserve the secrets of energy, consciousness, and cosmic order before the Great Flood erased their homeland. Modern researchers like Graham Hancock and Robert Schoch point to geological evidence of water erosion on the Sphinx, suggesting a civilization existed in Egypt far earlier than mainstream history allows, possibly one carrying forward Atlantean knowledge. The resonance deepens when we look at myths across cultures. The Mayans spoke of a drowned land to the east. The Dogon of Mali preserved star knowledge without telescopes. An Egyptian priest told Solon of a fallen empire that once ruled the seas. All threads of a lost story that the pyramid may have been built to safeguard. Standing before its silent stones, you can almost feel the weight of forgotten time pressing against your chest. A message hidden in limestone and granite, waiting for a future age that could understand its true origin. Perhaps that age is now. Beneath the shining limestone casing stones that once made the Great Pyramid gleam like a star, there lies something far older and far darker. Hidden below the bedrock is the subterranean chamber, a hollow carved deep into the earth. Unlike the king's and queen's chambers above, this one is rough, unfinished, as if intentionally left raw. Some Egyptologists suggest it was abandoned, but others whisper that its very crudeness is the key. To step down into it is to descend into the underworld, a symbolic journey mirroring the soul's passage after death. In ancient Egyptian texts, the Duat, the realm of shadows, was not a place of punishment, but of trial, transformation, and rebirth. The chamber below may have been a portal for priests, initiates, or even pharaohs to ritually confront death before their time. The shaft that leads into this chamber feels more like a tomb than a room of kings. Narrow, steep, claustrophobic. The initiate would be forced to crawl down, surrendering control, stripping away the illusions of earthly power. Once inside, the silence is absolute. No echo, no air, just the weight of the earth pressing from all sides. This was not a place for the body, but for the soul. Ancient initiates may have used it to simulate burial, to experience ego death while still alive, and to emerge reborn with the wisdom of the underworld. Modern esoteric traditions often compare the subterranean chamber to a womb, dark, confining, but ultimately creative. Death, they taught, is not an ending, but a passage. Perhaps this space was designed to remind seekers that one must go down before one can rise, to descend into shadow, to face the void, and to return carrying light. That was the hidden lesson carved into stone. When the ancients shaped the Great Pyramid, they may have carved not only stone, but also a living timeline into its corridors. Many researchers, from Charles Piazzi Smith to more recent investigators, have proposed that the structure encodes a prophetic calendar. Each passage and chamber, they suggest, could mark turning points in humanity's unfolding journey. The descending passage, with its steep angle into darkness, has been read as the long age of ignorance and material enslavement. Then, the upward galleries represent the ascent toward light, wisdom, and awakening. This theory, often called pyramidology, is controversial, yet it lingers because of how tightly geometry and astronomy are woven into the monument. The precise alignment to cardinal directions, the golden ratio embedded in its proportions, and the star shafts pointing to Orion and Sirius suggest intentional design far beyond mere tomb building. Scholars like Graham Hancock and Robert Bauval argue that this structure functions as a cosmic mirror, holding knowledge meant for cycles far beyond its builders. If this reading is true, then the pyramid is not just an echo of the past, but a map of the future. Its stones would hold within them a prophecy of collapse and renewal. Some interpretations even suggest that critical world events, wars, discoveries, spiritual rebirths, correspond to distances along the passages when scaled to years. Whether metaphor or design, this invites us to see history itself as encoded within sacred geometry. Perhaps what the pyramid asks is not blind belief, but a shift of perspective. To view humanity not as drifting randomly, but as moving within a vast pattern, a destiny shaped by both stars and stone. And in this vision, our present moment is not an accident, but part of the prophecy carved into the heart of the desert. Within the vast desert sands of Egypt, the Great Pyramid rises not only as a monument of stone, but as a mirror of the inner temple hidden within each human being. Ancient traditions whispered of a sacred chamber, not of limestone and granite, but within the mind itself, nestled deep between the hemispheres of the brain. This chamber, the pineal gland, was described in mystical texts as the seat of the soul, the place where spirit and matter converge. When viewed this way, the pyramid becomes more than architecture. It becomes a cosmic diagram, pointing inward as much as upward, guiding humanity to remember that the true temple of initiation is not built by human hands, but is carried within the body itself. Mystics of Egypt, India, and Greece spoke of the pineal gland as a hidden eye, a gate that, when awakened, could pierce through illusion. Its symbolism echoes through the eye of Horus, through the third eye of yogic traditions, through the shining star at the apex of the pyramid. Even René Descartes, centuries later, called the pineal the dwelling place of the soul. Within its spiral chambers of calcite, modern science has found crystalline structures that resonate with light, almost as though designed to tune consciousness itself. Could it be that the builders of the pyramid encoded this knowledge, offering a map for humanity's inner evolution? When initiates walked the darkened passages of the pyramid, they were not only entering a tomb of stone, but also symbolically descending into their own body. The journey upward toward the king's chamber was a reminder that the soul's ascent comes when the inner eye is opened, when the pineal awakens, and when the inner temple is illuminated. The pyramid whispers still, reminding us that within each of us lies the same sacred architecture, waiting to be rediscovered. In every age, there have been truths so dangerous to the established order that entire empires moved to bury them. the Great Pyramid's true purpose stands among these forbidden truths. While it has been dressed in the garments of a mere tomb, scholars, mystics, and visionaries throughout history have whispered otherwise. If it were only a burial chamber, why align it with the stars, encode mathematical constants, and construct it with such impossible precision? The answer, perhaps, lies not in stone, but in control. Because to admit that this monument was a temple of consciousness, a bridge between worlds, would mean humanity holds within itself the same power the elite sought to hoard. Colonial Egyptologists in the 19th century dismissed esoteric interpretations, not because they were baseless, but because they undermined a narrative designed to keep history neat, predictable, and politically useful. Even today, alternative researchers like Graham Hancock and John Anthony West have faced ridicule and suppression for suggesting that the pyramid encodes timelines of human destiny or technologies of initiation. Their ideas threatened not just academic consensus, but the very foundation of authority that relies on humanity forgetting its own potential. The suppression of the pyramid's true purpose mirrors the suppression of spiritual sovereignty itself. To erase the pyramid as a temple of awakening is to erase the knowledge that every human being contains an inner temple, an indestructible light waiting to be activated. By calling it a tomb, the rulers of the past and the gatekeepers of the present reduce it to death. But when you see it as a map of the cosmos and the soul, it becomes life. And life that awakens cannot be controlled. This is why they tried to erase it, because once remembered, its message makes every empire tremble. When we step into the Aquarian age, the Great Pyramid seems less like a monument of stone and more like a voice, whispering through silence. For centuries, it has stood in stillness, yet its geometry continues to vibrate with meanings not fully unlocked. Scholars have long argued about its alignment with Orion, with Sirius, and with the star Thuban, the pole star of its age of construction. But perhaps the greater message was never about the stars themselves, but about cycles, the turning of cosmic seasons that shift consciousness as surely as the Earth turns day into night. The Aquarian age is often described as the age of knowledge, of unity, of breaking down old systems to rediscover truth. In that light, the pyramid's design becomes more than a tomb or observatory. It is a mirror. The king's chamber, resonating at frequencies akin to the human brain and the Earth's own Schumann resonance, suggests that the builders understood something essential, that the cosmos and the human mind were not separate, but woven together. Now, as Aquarius dawns, humanity is remembering that connection. The whispers of the pyramid grow louder, not through words but through synchronicities. More people questioning, more seekers drawn to its silent stones, more recognition that the ancients encoded not only the past but the future. The old age, Pisces, was about faith and belief, about surrendering to unseen authorities. Aquarius brings a shift towards direct experience gnosis, awakening the temple within. The pyramid, long buried in sand and secrecy, becomes a symbol for what is rising in us. The recognition that destiny is not dictated by rulers or dogma, but by alignment with cosmic truth. And so the pyramid stands, no longer a relic, but a reminder that even stone can whisper when it carries the language of eternity. Beneath the shifting sands of Egypt, the Great Pyramid still rises, as if untouched by time, its sharp lines and massive stones enduring storms, earthquakes, and centuries of human hands. Some call it a tomb, others a monument, yet its endurance speaks of something greater. It is a beacon, not only of stone and geometry, but of spirit, ancient texts, from Plutarch to the Hermetica, suggest that the pyramid was not meant merely to honor the dead, but to remind the living of eternity. Its form mirrors the rays of the sun, anchoring heaven to earth, and its immovable presence whispers that human life is fleeting, but the soul belongs to forever. When one stands before it, there is a silence that feels alive, a pause that is not empty, but filled with a vibration, as if the stones hum with the memory of civilizations past and those yet to come. Researchers like John Anthony West and Graham Hancock have argued that the Great Pyramid may encode messages not only about the stars, but about consciousness itself. The ratio of its dimensions reflects cosmic constants. Its chambers align with celestial points that shift with the ages. It is as though the builders carved a message in stone. You are more than flesh. You are part of a cycle that does not end. In the Aquarian dawn, this message becomes urgent again. As old systems collapse, the pyramid still points upward. Its summit reminds us that no matter how heavy the base of our lives feels, the soul is destined to ascend. The Great Pyramid still calls us home, not to a place of sand and limestone, but to the remembrance of who we are, to the light that cannot be buried, to the eternal. So now, my friend, the question is not whether the pyramid still speaks, it is whether you are listening. Because if you felt the call in these words, if you sense the echo of something ancient stirring in your own heart, then you already know this journey has only just begun. Do not stop here. Watch the other voyages we've prepared for you. Each one is a door, each one a map, and together they reveal the hidden story of your soul. So let this be the moment. Subscribe to this channel so you never miss the truths they tried to bury. Comment below and share what awakened in you tonight, because your voice, your presence, is part of this awakening. And if you felt the resonance, if you felt even a flicker of remembrance, share this video with someone you know is ready, someone you love, someone whose soul is searching. Every time you like, every time you share, you help light another beacon, and together we guide the world back home. This is the Hidden Voyage, and remember, the journey does not end here. It begins within you. Welcome home, SoulWhisper and SoulCreator.